If you were looking for a list of top 10 things that you should never Google, then look no farther than the case that we're going to talk about today. I've got some things to tell you about it. But before we do talk about it, please keep in mind that these are just my opinions. I ain't a doctor, I ain't a lawyer, I ain't none of that fancy stuff. I'm just a guy with a sofa and a little dog and some opinions on true crime. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Hello everybody and welcome back to the sofa. That is the sofa behind me with our trusty sidekick, Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane, and my name is Paul and thank you for joining today. As always, thank you to everybody who makes the Sofa Squad possible. Y'all wouldn't be here without you. The Patreons, the channel members, everybody who hangs out in the comment section and talks, likes, shares, and keeps the stories of the victims going, as well as the Sofa Squad. I do appreciate it. Now, like I said, today we have a doozy of a case. We are going to be talking about the Anna and Brian Walsh case. Anna is missing. We can only go on that she is presumed no longer with us. We will talk about that. And specifically what we're going to be talking about in this video is going to be what seems to be some of the evidence of the alleged defendant, Mr. Brian, her husband. And so we're going to talk about some of the evidence. We are going to talk about some key points in the case and whatnot, who Anna was, and go over that kind of stuff. So go ahead, you're going to need to definitely buckle up the sofa seat belts for this one because it's going to get crazy, okay? But before you buckle them up, leave a little bit of room on the sofa back there because you already know we got somebody new. We got a new friend of the sofa. They're helping keep the doors open and the cushions fluff. So take a minute and hear what I have to say about them. So just think about all the crazy stuff that we have seen exposed from people's searches on the internet and what they're doing in these cases that we follow, and keep that in mind as we talk about this company today. And that company is Surfshark VPN. A VPN which stands for Virtual Private Network that keeps you safe not only while you're perusing the internet, but also private so that anyone trying to snoop on you is going to be stopped in their tracks. Now there's so many different benefits that come with using a VPN like Surfshark. One of those for me is I spend a lot of time out editing, doing that kind of stuff in public, using public Wi-Fi access. And one thing that Surfshark VPN offers is military grade encryption so that if you're like me and you do this a lot, you know you're going to be protected. Now here's another really cool and fun part for me. When you log on, the world is literally at your fingertips. The VPN lets you change your IP address and log in from whatever country it is that you might want to virtually visit. Now you might be asking, how's all this fancy talk translate to the Sofa Squad? Well, I'm gonna tell you, and first things first. So one of the first things is if you're like me and you have literally hit a wall with your Netflix or Hulu subscriptions, then this is going to literally open you up to an entirely new rabbit hole. You can go to Netflix's and Hulu's platforms in other countries and check out what they have. It is amazing. But also, if you're not interested in that, but say you travel a lot and travel abroad especially, and you're going to run into content that you usually watch back here home or wherever home might be for you, then you're going to be able to access that. Don't worry, Surfshark has got you covered. Now you already know another thing that I did is I completely went down this rabbit hole where I was like logging into all these different countries and researching different true crime stuff to see if I could like find things that weren't like listed here, you know, that I couldn't easily access here locally in the States. Another amazing thing is their rates. Y'all, it's like $249 a month, okay? But they don't stop there. You can have unlimited devices with one subscription. It's already super affordable, and that makes it absolutely accessible. On top of that, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee period. You literally cannot go wrong by trying it. So go ahead, give it a shot. You don't have anything to lose, and enter promo code Sofa Squad for 83% off and 3 extra months free. Again, that's Sofa Squad promo code for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. All right, thanks everybody for listening to that. Be sure to check them out. All the stuff's in the description below. So let's go ahead and get on into it. So New Year's Eve 2022, people gather with friends and loved ones to celebrate the past year and usher in the new year. It's a time of joy, happiness, and celebration. And one would have thought that this was the same thing that was going on at Anna and Brian Walsh's New Year's party. But at 1:30 a.m., one of their friends there would be the last time that someone would be able to document seeing Anna alive. Apparently for Brian Walsh, one of his New Year resolutions was to be single again, and he allegedly tried to make sure that that would happen sometime after 1:30 a.m. on New Year Day. Now some of y'all might be like, well, Paul, what's the evidence of this? How do we know this really took place? Well, go ahead and buckle your damn seatbelts up because I'm getting ready to tell you. But first, let's talk about who Anna was. And really, let's talk about their family. Brian Walsh was 47 years old. Now, he has been charged with taking Anna's life at this point. She was 39 years old. Now, at the time of this video, her body has not been found. They had 3 young children, ages 2 to 6. They are now in state custody. Now, they lived in an affluent coastal community. I'm probably going to butcher the name of this, but it's Cohasset. If you're from the area, just drop it. Let me know. It's about 15 miles southeast of Boston. It looks beautiful. It looks like a place I would love to visit. So Anna was a wife, a mother, a daughter, a friend, and she's also wealthy and owned real estate and did very well in that. Now, according to an article by CNN, she was worth quite a pretty penny in the real estate department. She would commute weekly to Washington, D.C. for work. And she would stay in like this $1.3 million townhouse that they owned. She would spend weekends back home with her family. And let's just take a minute to look at this little quick snippet from the CNN article. It says that a search of the property records reveals that Anna Walsh had a valuable real estate portfolio that sold one property shortly before she disappeared. She owned at least 4 residential properties according to publicly available property assessment records and tax records in Massachusetts. I can never say that word right. In Maryland and Washington, D.C., where she worked for a real estate firm. Her husband, Brian, is not listed as owner or co-owner of any of the properties. That's major to me, at least. And it goes on to list some of these properties that they owned. Okay, now here's the other thing. So Anna's mother is from Serbia. That's where she lives. And she has filed a formal request to get information about her daughter. And so this is like going through the proper, channels and whatnot to do this. My heart aches for her. I can't imagine what that must feel like. Now, I also heard that there had been some level of, Anna reaching out to her. Like, I think that the mother was aware, like, something's not going on, something's not right. But also, the mother was, cited as saying, she can't imagine Brian having anything to do with this. So that part right there is very confusing to me, and I think that as evidence comes out, we'll be able to find out more of what was going on with that. So overall, Anna sounds like a very successful, very go-getter type of a woman. Now, opposite of that, okay, like completely opposite of that, is Brian. Let's talk about him for a minute. First things first, this ain't his first time at the rodeo, boys and girls. Let's talk about his time as an art dealer. Heavy on the quotation marks. Okay, so Brian is basically a completely grimy human being even before this whole situation went down with his wife, Anna. And so the main character in this other situation that's going on that pours over into the situation, his name is Ron. He was a Los Angeles gallery owner. Now, Brian sold him some fake Andy Warhol paintings. Now, this dude gave the Daily Beast an interview about this, and I'm going to put some clips up here because the things that he had to say, I was like, girl. Let's just look at a couple of these lovely little quotes about him. He knows how to play the legal system. He knows how to play everyone and everything, Ron told the Daily Beast. He's very calculated. Let's continue. Now, this just goes into it a little bit more about what he did, but this is very interesting here. We'll just read this little part right here. So, Ron, a former talent manager and agent working in the music industry who founded LA's Revolver Gallery in 2012. He's one of the nation's top dealers of Warhol artworks. He described Walsh, on Monday described Walsh, who is now accused of trying to cause a clear delay for investigators as they search for his wife, as very two-faced. In Rivlin's case, he said Brian was initially charismatic, articulate, transparent, and professional, then did a complete 180 after he delivered fake paintings and was unreachable until I spoke to Anna at work and later the FBI. To that end, Rivlin said Walsh, who has been under home confinement for the past 7 months as he awaits sentencing in the Warhol case, talked a great game. I bought over 1,000 Warhols, and this is the one and only acquisition that got by me. He said that Walsh acted like a perfect gentleman until he got what he wanted, then he ghosted. He was very good, clever playbook, and Oscar-worthy performance. Okay, so now here's the thing. We see this all the time with these dudes or women, but oftentimes in a lot of these cases we watch it's the dudes, right? Who, I mean, the same kind of stuff, like they are charismatic, they know how to play the game, you name it. This dude swindled an art dealer, okay? Like out of these Warhol paintings. I mean, this is insane. Now the story goes on, I'll link it down below if you want to read the whole thing. But it was amazing at just the lengths that this dude went to, right? And so to hear these kind of narratives coming out, now there's also another narrative about, you know, Brian getting shady with the family estate. People do not have good things to say about Brian. Now, remember how moments ago we talked about the mother, Anna's mother, and she was like, you know, one article has been quoted as like, I can't imagine that Brian did anything or whatever. Okay, so this is why the stuff like this happens, where people are like, huh? What? Remember when in the staircase, Michael Peterson, when at first everyone was like in support, like there's no way he would do this, like absolutely not, until the evidence came out, and then everybody was like, oh, what? He had us snowed, right? Same type situation here, allegedly. Okay, so now that we got a general idea of who we dealing with, let's go back to New Year's night. Okay, so remember how I told you that she went missing, like in those early morning hours of New Year's Day? Okay, well, another thing you might be thinking is like, oh my God, how horrible. Certainly, even though we kind of know that he's been arrested, he must have like reported her missing and really covered his tracks up. Well, you're wrong if that's what you were thinking. In fact, it wasn't him that reported her missing, but her job that she commuted to, and that was days later. Now, of course, when this happened, welfare checks were done, and we're getting ready to get into a little bit of a timeline here. And this timeline is going to unveil some rather interesting Google searches. Now, for as much as this art dealer dude is like, oh man, he played a game, man. This dude knew what he was doing. Brian has never watched a true crime documentary in his life. Because if he had, I am 100% telling you, the evidence we are about to discuss would not even come close to of happening. So let's just pinpoint some of our focus onto the searches that were made the night of, like hours after there, of this event from the kid's iPad. Some of them. I'm going to put this document up here so we can just go through it, okay? Some of the searches would be how long before a body starts to smell, how to stop a body from decomposing, 10 ways to dispose of a body, can an identification be made on partial remains, how to clean blood from a wooden floor, dismemberment and best ways to dispose of body, hacksaw, best tool to dismember, can you identify a body with broken teeth? Y'all, this man was like literally Googling top 10 lists on how to dispose of bodies. I'm just like, what idiot does this, okay? I mean, the level of insanity with this. Does it from their own devices, from the kid's iPad. Now, this man would go through links to be, I mean, he had a story for everything. And that's often what we see with these type characters. They have a story. They have thought through everything. They are charming. They are superficial. They can do all this kind of stuff. But when you scrape past that level, that's where it falls apart. So just like we hear with the art dealer dude, where he's like, it was all fine and dandy till he got what he wanted. And then it was like messy, right? It was like very messy. Like Brian was like he couldn't maintain, right? So let's continue. But now those searches weren't all they were uncovering, okay? Before the event, in the latter days of December leading up to that, he was Googling like the best states to get a divorce in, all this type stuff. Now remember the sale of the home and all that kind of stuff in her real estate holdings. You see a little bit of a pattern here, right? She was worth a lot of money. This stuff wasn't in his name, so on and so forth. You can start to see basically the big words flashing Motive! Motive! Okay, so now let's do a time warp again. Let's do a little Rocky Horror Picture Show back to January 4th. Remember how I told you that it was her work that was like, well, this is weird. Maybe somebody should, I don't know, check on her. Let's go talk about or look at a few excerpts from the police report. Now, again, I'll link it down below if you want to read the whole thing. But I just want to talk about a few highlights of evidence from that, because you're going to be like, you're going to hit your head against the wall, okay, when we read these, okay? It's that bad. If you have not fully recovered from the Google searches he made, go on, unfasten your seatbelt, go, take a spell, and then come on back. So first up, we have 2023. Walsh was granted leave for dropping his children off at school each day from 8 to 10:30 a.m. and picking up the kids from 3:15 to 6:45 p.m. Among other approved leave times was 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. for shopping on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Now, y'all might be like, Paul, what's this approved leave time? Is he like in the military or something like that? Well, he ain't in the military, I can tell you that much. Remember how I told you that he was on probation? We read about that stuff. So he was on probation when he did this. This is the other part that I'm like, who in their right mind does this on probation, okay? Where you have to like have very specific things. If you can only leave the house, you have to check in, you have to do all this kind of stuff, and it just gets worse. Walsh's statements to investigators about his whereabouts on Monday, January 2nd, 2023 were consistent in that he did take his oldest child for ice cream or smoothie at Press Something Bar in Norrell. This was during the morning hours he is allotted for school drop-off between 8 and 10:30 a.m. There was no school on Monday, January 2nd, 2023 due to the holiday. Investigators later discovered video evidence of Walsh at the Home Depot in Rockland, wearing a black surgical mask, blue surgical gloves, making a cash purchase. This trip was made in violation of his probation conditions during the time, I can't read it, but he's supposed to be picking up his kids from school. I mean, y'all, this is almost 100% we're going to find out. We're going to get Walmart evidence out of this one. I'm not sure what kind of costume he's going to be wearing for that, but this is also blows my mind, and also very similar to what we saw or seen with Brian Kohlberger, where it's like in some ways he tried to really cover his tracks and in other ways he didn't. So like this dude here, exhaustive Google searches on the kid's iPad for how to dispose of their mother, right? But then he's going to go to Home Depot wearing a mask and gloves and stuff like that. You know, like, I'm like, are you not aware? And using cash, right? Like, okay, that they won't know it's me. I mean, I'm just like, my God, it's painful. Now, mind you, the ankle... So remember, he's wearing an ankle monitor, right? Now, the ankle monitor doesn't have GPS tracking in it. It just tells him when he left the home. So on that note, he's probably thinking, well, I'll leave the house. They won't be none the wiser. Never occurring to him, apparently, that the husband is always the one, or the wife, whoever, the spouse. They start from the inner circle and work out in these cases, right? It's just what they do. And so when his story doesn't start adding up, that's where I'm like, did he not think they could easily check this stuff? I mean, it was a holiday, for God's sakes, right? It's like you weren't even supposed to like be doing this, and that's just what blows my mind with this. Where I'm like, you know, was this like a social experiment on like how to get caught? Again, look at Brian Kohlberger. I mean, it blows my mind. The data from Walsh's cell phone data extraction given on, I can't read that word, also showed the device traveled to the areas of Brockton and Abington during the week beginning January 1st, 2023. The itinerary for Walsh's leave from home does not include such towns for approved travel. This is not a complete list of Walsh's approved leave from home and possible probation violations. So again, 100% violating probation, number one. Number two, why would you take your phone with you? I guess the same reason why you would Google how to do this. I cannot get over it, right? It absolutely is a shocker. Now, of course, all of this fabricating and misleading, this would eventually lead to him being first charged with misleading an investigation. This was giving Casey Anthony Universal vibes 100%. You know these cops right off the rip. It probably took them 5 damn seconds to figure this out. Like, hello? Like, I mean, they just caught him up real quick, right? And then it just started unraveling from there. Now, also, other evidence found, I mean, we're talking, bloody stuff at the house, you name it. Very quickly, they have come up with other charges. Now, they are charging him with the big M, as well as another charge in basically like doing something with the body. They have, again, at the time of this, they do not have said body, unfortunately. My heart, first and foremost, obviously breaks for Anna. She clearly doesn't deserve this. My heart aches for those 2 children. I will never for the life of me understand the selfishness of these people when they do this and take children's other parent, and then obviously in turn they're losing this parent. Now clearly we don't want these children being raised by Brian at this point, right? I think this is obvious, right? But it's heartbreaking. And then obviously for her family and her loved ones, and her mother's all the way, not even in this country. It blows my mind, the selfishness, but also the heinousness of this crime and what he did to cover his tracks. It is completely bizarre, and the more that comes out about him, it's just one of these off the rail cases that we will be following. Now look at the next couple of videos that are popping up, and be sure to look at our new outro screen we got. We're, trying to class up the joint in here. Be sure to check out the other videos. Thank you for hanging out with me and watching, and until we gather around the sofa and this camera and the computer, I'll see you soon.